As twilight descends and the forest transforms into a realm of shadows, an unsettling silence takes hold. What secrets lie hidden among the trees? In this video, we explore 3 chilling encounters that remind us that not all who wander in the woods return unscathed. Are you ready to uncover the terror that lurks beneath the canopy? These events occurred 2 summers ago in the Grand Teton area. My boyfriend at the time, now husband, let's call him H, was an avid outdoorsman and also served in the military. I was an ecology major and wanted to spend more time outdoors, so he decided to take me on my first backpack, just the 2 of us. For those who aren't familiar, the Grand Tetons are well known for their wildlife, specifically grizzly bears. My only experience with bears up to this point was watching a little black bear cross the road from the safety of my car. Seeing grizzly country signs around every corner wasn't doing much to calm my nerves. First incident. My boyfriend looked like Indiana Jones, machete hanging from his belt, large knives attached to each side of his pack, bear spray strapped to his waist. You get the picture. The beginning of our 25-mile journey was all uphill. When you're in bear country, you're supposed to make noise so as to not startle the wildlife by accidentally sneaking up on it. As you can imagine, going up a steep hill while carrying a 40-pound pack makes it difficult to make conversation. We were an hour in and almost at the top of the ascent. I noticed that the woods had gone completely silent, save for the rushing stream that was to our left of the trail. Silent woods are never a good sign. This usually indicates predators nearby. At this point, I was in front of my boyfriend, and we were about to crest the hill. For the past 20 minutes, we had not said a word to each other, having been too tired to speak. We noticed the silence at the same time and gave each other knowing glances. I came up over the top of the hill and immediately froze. Sitting not 10 feet in front of me, in the middle of the trail, was a grizzly bear. My husband wasn't aware yet, as he was behind me, so I did the first thing I could think of. While still in my frozen stance, I managed to take my arm and started flinging it wildly behind me, trying to get H's attention. I was too terrified to speak. The bear went from sitting down to being on all 4s, not looking away from us once. H quickly swung me around so that I was behind him, and he just started yelling. Being in the military, he knows how to yell. The grizzly wasn't quite fazed, as it started to walk slowly towards us. At this point, I was on the verge of passing out from terror. The bear was about 5 feet in front of us when we heard a loud crack coming from the woods to our right. The bear heard it too, and he bolted towards the stream. A second crack boomed again, this time much closer than before. H said, "It's probably just some falling branches." But we both knew that wasn't the case. At this point, we were walking quickly up the trail in an attempt to create some distance from the grizzly and those strange noises. I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand straight up, and at the same moment, H stopped moving in front of me. He turned around to look at me, and I turned to look behind me. To this day, we are not sure what we saw. Back where we were standing was a large, black-brown mass. It looked to be 3 times bigger than the already large grizzly that we had seen just a few moments before. Its back was facing us, and when it stood on its back legs, it looked similar to a bear, but something about the shape was just off. At this point, it was probably stupid to run away, but that is exactly what we did. We were aware of heavy footsteps behind us, but neither of us looked back. The footsteps eventually faded. At this point, I was a mess. H was doing his best to console me. "Honey, this is extremely unusual. The bears usually stay away from humans. We're going to be okay. I'm sure that won't happen again." That was enough to convince me to continue on the backpack. Not another hour later, though, we reached a clearing where we decided to take a rest and eat a snack. About a minute after we sat down, I noticed bushes moving in a line toward the clearing, toward us. Out of the brush comes this adolescent grizzly who looks just as spooked as I'm sure we did, but he came straight for us. H, being the crazy nut that he is, decided to charge back at the bear while screaming, bear spray at the ready. That did the trick, and the bear ran off. All I could think was, just my luck. But that wasn't even close to what happened the second night. Before we began our backpack, we had to let the ranger station know which trails or route we planned to take. With this information, they usually send a ranger on horseback at some point during the backpack to check on you to make sure everything is okay. There were not many approved trails left for us to choose from, and it was just our luck that they were the most difficult. Apparently, over the 3 days we were on those trails, we had been the sole hikers. We didn't see a single other person once we were en route. Anyhow, I guess we missed the ranger who came to check on us. We had been following hoofprints the entire second day, and we hadn't seen any the day before. I had some foot problems, so we spent valuable daylight trying to adjust my boots, laces, and socks to compensate for the pain. When we started on the trail again, we had maybe an hour or two of daylight left, and in the woods, it gets dark fast. I was exhausted. It was now dark out, and H was the only one with a working headlamp, as mine wouldn't even turn on for some reason. We needed to find somewhere to set up camp, as we still needed to eat. It was freezing, and the wind was blowing. It created a howling sound as it rushed through the trees, which made it difficult to hear H or discern any other sounds coming from the woods. After another hour of hiking through the dark, we found a clearing. Well, it was more like a bowl. It looked to be 200 meters in diameter, with the sides being about 10 meters down from the trail to the bottom of the clearing. This place was strange. We both felt it, though he didn't tell me how freaked he was till after we had left. There was no moonlight, so all we had was the illumination from his headlamp, our small camp stove, and the flashlight that I fished from my pack. Half of the trees were dead or fallen, just in the bowl. The vegetation everywhere else was very dense. To help alleviate my anxiousness, he started playing Ninja Sex Party out of his portable speaker. This didn't help much, as it just echoed off the trees, creating a dissonance of sounds. He also thought it would ward off any predators nearby. This is when we knew our anxiousness wasn't paranoia. The silence was back. There hadn't been a single bird chirp since we arrived at the clearing. It also may have had to do with the obnoxious music, but because of our previous experience, we decided to turn off the music and head into the tent. Also, it was freezing. As soon as we were situated in our sleeping bags, we heard deep cracks and thuds echoing from beyond the tree line. Falling trees? There had been a lot of wildfires and very little rain this season. We both froze. That sound wasn't an echo. It came from inside the clearing. Definitely not a falling tree. It came from right outside our tent. We both stopped breathing. H's hand found mine and we clung to each other, paralyzed. Something dragged across the outside of our tent, making an indent as it went along. It was thin, almost like a finger.
"What is it?"
I whispered, shaking.
"I don't know,"
Shouldn't be a person. We're the only ones on this side of the mountain. I was trying my hardest to stifle sobs, trying to listen to what was outside. I could hear steps, but couldn't decipher what it was. The steps stopped, and then the whole side of the tent was slowly pushed inwards. At this point, whatever was outside knew we were inside, so I shined my flashlight at the side of the tent. What I saw made my blood run cold. It was the shape of a human face pressed into the tent wall. I could make out the nose and an open mouth. Each time they breathed, it made the tent around their mouth billow in and out. H said, "Fuck that," and pulled a Glock from his sleeping bag. He cocked it, and the sound shattered the silence. The face pulled back, and we heard fast footsteps heading towards the edge of the clearing. We didn't leave the tent till the sun was shining the next morning. The first thing we noticed was the smell of urine. We came out of the tent and looked around. Whoever it was had peed on our coals we had left in the fire, leaving a disgusting stench of evaporated pee. Footsteps surrounded our tent, circling around it multiple times. Muddy handprints decorated the outside of our tent. We think it was mud anyway. The takeaway: wildlife is not the most dangerous thing in the backcountry. I'm fairly new to Reddit, so I only discovered this sub recently. Using a throwaway account here because I didn't feel comfortable enough sharing this on my main account. I've lurked for a little while, and I think it's the perfect place to share the story of an experience I had about 9 or 10 years ago. The reason I'm sharing this is, A, because that's the point of this sub, and I've enjoyed reading others' experiences, but B, to see if anyone has a similar experience or an idea of what this could have been, because I never have. Before I start, I've told this story to lots of people over the years. Friends, family, even acquaintances whenever supernatural or scary stuff has come up in conversation. But I've always left out the finer details on purpose because, honestly, I think I have some latent trauma from it. I don't like going into detail about it or reliving this experience. Instead, I have only ever recounted this as a 60-second scary story to elicit a reaction, probably as a coping mechanism. My girlfriend is the only person I have ever told the full story. To be clear, I am not trying to convince anyone of anything here. You can believe what you want, and I respect your opinion, but I'm also not going to debate or argue over something I know to be true. This experience happened when I was wild camping on my own in a forest in Wales. I live in England, near the Welsh border. This is something I've done dozens of times and continue to do to this day. I think it was April or May 2013 or 14. Weather was unseasonably good, and this was the second of 3 nights that I'd planned for my trip, although it ended up being the last. First night and second day were great. I got a lovely long hike, followed by a pub lunch. I'd driven back to the area I was staying, and I was now back at my tent. I settled down for the night, read a book, and had some beers, and went to sleep. It was probably between 11 p.m. and midnight. I was just in that state where you're semi-conscious, about to drift off, but haven't quite just yet. I slowly became aware of a melodic noise somewhere outside the tent. Didn't sound that close, but maybe within like 50 feet. It sounded like a person perfectly humming a tune. After listening for a couple of minutes, it was definitely somebody humming a tune. When I say perfectly, I mean just that. It sounded like a professional singer or something because it was perfectly in tune. No voice breaks or falters at all. I can't remember whether it sounded like a man or a woman. At this point, I'm shitting myself because it's just incredibly creepy, like something from a horror film. I hadn't left my tent at this point, and the humming hadn't gotten any louder. It just stayed a distant background noise. I didn't know what to do, but knew I couldn't just stay there forever, so I mustered the courage to open my tent as slowly and quietly as I could to see if I could see anything or tell where the noise was coming from. Within 5 seconds of me poking my head out of the tent, the humming stopped. It didn't fade away or anything. It just stopped dead, as if someone had pressed pause on a recording. I'm still very on edge at this point, but at the time I assumed that's just what it was. Someone playing a prank on solo campers with an audio recording. I literally couldn't think of any other explanation. Based on that assumption, I shouted something like, "You're not funny, fuck off!" That made me feel a bit better, because it felt like I'd addressed the issue. I don't know, but for whatever reason, it helped my nerves a bit at the time. I let that hang in the air for like 10 more seconds, whilst my head is still poking out of the tent, and it stays quiet. I'm kinda satisfied by this point, so I begin moving back in. As I'm reaching for the tent zipper though, the humming starts again. Same tune, but much louder, much closer, and from the complete opposite direction. My heart completely sinks because there is no way someone could have moved from the first source of the noise to the second without me seeing or hearing something. Literally impossible. It was perfectly quiet in the woods, not even any breeze against the leaves. And yeah, it was dark, but I could still see short distances thanks to the moonlight. In the back of my mind though, my subconscious is clearly working overtime trying to rationalize this, and I guess I must have assumed that there were multiple pranksters out there with multiple audio recordings. I can't exactly remember what my thought process was at this point because it's truthfully all a blur. But for one reason or another, I stormed angrily out of the tent towards the now quite loud sound. It sounded as if the person humming was within like 10 feet of the tent. I got up out of the tent, turned towards the noise, ready to scream at the perpetrator or even attack if necessary. That's when I see this humanoid figure silhouetted against the tree line, maybe 15 feet away from me. My best description of it is this. It was a large, thin figure that was shaped like a human, but way too tall and proportioned all wrong. It was huge. I would guess over 7 feet. Its limbs were unnaturally long, like it had been stretched out in all directions. Its head appeared very small and rounded. I think the figure was gray in color, but I can't be 100% sure because of the poor visibility. I couldn't make out much of its face at all. It just seemed to be shrouded in shadow. I definitely didn't notice any features like eyes, mouth, or nose. It was standing quite still, facing directly towards me. I say quite still because there was some movement, in the same way that a person or animal would sway back and forth or make some minor body movements, etc., if they were standing up. This was a real, living thing. I know that for a fact, not an illusion, not a prop or prank. This thing was standing right in front of me and was aware of my presence. I'm literally paralyzed by fear at this point. I have never felt anything like it before or since. Just a primal terror, which has left me cold, shaking, just standing there, quite literally unable to move. I distinctly remember thinking that I needed to get away, but I could not physically move my body. It was the most terrified I have ever been. As I first laid eyes on this creature, the humming stopped, and immediately it started humming again, but not a song. It started softly singing my name, in what sounded like my voice. That sounds fucking ridiculous, I know, but I swear that's how I remember it. Even though it was singing in my voice though, it didn't sound right. The syllables were just off, as though a non-human had heard speech once and was trying to mimic it for the first time, poorly. I haven't described that well, but I don't think I know the words to do so. This can't have gone on for more than about 10 seconds, but it felt like forever. Me standing there, this creature standing, motionless and singing my name. At some point though, every cell in my body just switched, and I managed to turn and run as fast as I ever have in the opposite direction. For maybe 2 minutes, I was literally sprinting through the woods in just my socks and PJs, with absolutely no other thought in my mind other than putting distance between myself and that thing. I had no idea which direction I was going or how I'd make it back to my tent. When I eventually stopped, I just leaned against this tree, panting for ages. The forest was still completely silent. I must have stayed by that tree for about 2 hours, waiting for my heart rate to settle, trying to calm down and decide what to do. I didn't want to go back to my tent. I was quite happy to leave all my stuff there, but I needed my phone and car keys to get home. I was several miles away from anywhere. I eventually made my way back slowly. It wasn't too hard to navigate back to my tent in those woods because the tree distribution wasn't very dense. I also hadn't gone as far as I first feared. Once back in my tent, I grabbed just my phone and keys and went back to my car as fast as I was comfortable. Spent the rest of the night sitting in my back seat on my phone, shaking. Didn't even try to get any sleep. Once the sun was up, I managed to go back and pack my stuff up and left as quickly as I could. After that, I took a 2+ year break from solo camping, something I normally do every 3 to 4 months. So, that's my experience. Make of it what you will. That has stayed with me ever since, and I know it always will. I don't know what was in the woods with me that night, but it has scarred me and transformed the way I think about supernatural experiences, etc. If anyone has encountered anything similar to what I described, I'd be interested to hear. Thanks for reading, and sorry this was so long. I could give you 1,000,000 times as a kid and young adult I felt scared or paranoid playing in the woods. It's a beautiful place, and I spent my entire childhood getting lost, not literally, out there by myself or with friends. As kids, we never ventured too far, but you could see the progression as we grew older because of the forts and carvings we left behind. This one particular time, like 1,000 times before, my friend and I had just graduated high school. It was our last summer of freedom, and we spent the entire season camping and hiking. We decided to find a new place to set up camp, and walked for what felt like miles before we came to a nice clearing. The area was relatively new to both of us. We set up camp, got the fire going, and the plan was to wait until nightfall, smoke some weed, and play Monopoly. For some backstory on my friend, he's a small, goofy guy, but comes from a family of foresters and had a deep understanding of trees and plants. He had no fear of camping alone. If I spent 10,000 hours in the woods, he probably spent 50,000. As for me, I'm a taller, sturdier guy, and as we got older, I spent more time focused on women and sports. The woods, for me, became a place for small parties. I never had the guts to camp alone. In fact, as I got older, I wouldn't go far when I was by myself. I could never shake the feeling of being watched. Probably just paranoia, but still an uneasy feeling. Anyway, camp was set, the fire was going, but it was getting low and needed more wood. The sun was down, and we were just cutting up and having a good time. My friend was sitting on this little chair he always brought, loading up a makeshift bong. I was crouched, breaking off some excess limbs from the logs we had gathered. Suddenly, this strong breeze cut through the clearing. I don't know if it was the suddenness or what, but we both stopped and looked at each other. The breeze lasted just long enough to flicker our fire to a small flame. We sat still in almost total darkness, not saying a word. Across from us, on the other side of the fire, we heard footsteps. It sounded like someone was running. then slowing to a walk, then running again. Definitely 2 legs. The steps were pacing back and forth in the same spot. Then, just as it started, it stopped with a softer crunch in the underbrush. I knew by the sound that it had crouched. I was still crouched, staring at it in the dark. My friend grabbed my shoulder and whispered, "Buddy." When he did, I felt a surge of fear rush over me. I could feel it in him too. I had been so focused on rationalizing what I heard that I hadn't even considered fear until now. This was real, raw fear, the kind that makes you feel helpless. After a while, I heard my friend grab some leaves and drop them on the fire. For a split second, we were in complete darkness. Then the fire sprang back to life. We quickly threw more leaves and brush onto it. I grabbed some sticks and logs, but we didn't take our eyes off the spot. We stayed like that for over an hour. Finally, the leaves crunched and whatever it was slowly walked off. It had been crouched, watching us for far longer than any animal would. It wasn't until after the footsteps faded that I realized the smell had disappeared as well. It had smelled like a paper mill, like spoiled eggs. For the rest of the night, besides a few whispered remarks, neither of us moved much or stopped watching that spot. Nobody went into the tent. I managed a little sleep, sitting on the ground with my head resting on my hands, but my friend never slept. In the morning, we packed up and silently walked back home. To this day, we still talk about it. In the 7 to 8 years since, my forester friend hasn't camped alone out there again.